I stood in the wings of the auditorium, cap and gown pristine, watching my sister Emma preen in front of our mother's phone camera. They were 20 feet away, but they might as well have been on another planet. Mom adjusted Emma's honors cords for the third time, cooing about how proud she was, how Emma had always been destined for greatness. My father stood beside them, beaming, his hand on Emma's shoulder like she was the only daughter he'd ever had. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was graduating summa cum laude with a double major in computer science and applied mathematics from one of the top universities in the country. Emma was finishing her associate degree from the local community college with a barely passing GPA. But in my family's eyes, Emma's mediocre achievement outshone my excellence simply because she was Emma. And I was just Sarah. The old Sarah would have felt the familiar ache in her chest, that desperate need for validation that never came. The old Sarah would have walked over to them, tried to get their attention, maybe even begged them to take just one photo with her. But I wasn't the old Sarah anymore. I was someone who had died at 28 in my previous life, alone in a hospital bed, my family too busy with Emma's wedding preparations to visit. I was someone who had been given an impossible second chance when I woke up as my 18-year-old self the morning after my high school graduation. I was someone who had spent the last 4 years carefully, meticulously planning for this exact moment. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at it, a smile tugging at my lips. Car is waiting at the east entrance. Everything is ready. Are you? I looked back at my family one last time. Mom was now fixing Dad's tie while Emma complained about the heat. None of them had glanced in my direction once since we'd arrived an hour ago. They didn't know I was graduating today. Well, they knew in the abstract sense. They'd been informed. They'd received the invitation. But they didn't know. They hadn't asked what time the ceremony was. Hadn't asked if I needed help moving out of my dorm. Hadn't asked anything at all. That was fine. Better than fine, actually. It was perfect. I typed back, "I'm ready." Then, I turned and walked toward the east entrance, leaving my cap and gown on a chair. I wouldn't need them where I was going. Behind me, they called out names for the procession to begin. Somewhere in that list was Sarah Mitchell, but I wouldn't be there to answer. By the time they realized I was gone, I'd be 30,000 feet in the air, flying first class to Singapore, to a life they couldn't even begin to imagine. And they would never see it coming. The memories of my first life hit me like waves in those early days after I woke up reborn. I would be sitting in my childhood bedroom, the small one, the one that used to be a storage room before they converted it for me, and suddenly I'd remember dying. The pneumonia that turned to sepsis. The phone calls I made to my family that went unanswered. The nurse holding my hand because no one else would. But before the dying came the living, and that was somehow worse. In my first life, I had tried so hard, God, how I had tried. I remembered being 10 years old, bringing home straight A's, bursting through the door with my report card, so excited to show Mom and Dad. Emma had gotten a C in math, and the house was in crisis mode. Mom was on the phone with a tutor. Dad was giving Emma a pep talk about how everyone learns differently. My report card sat on the kitchen counter for 3 days before Mom finally glanced at it and said, "That's nice, honey," without even looking at me. I remembered being 14, making the regional finals for the Math Olympiad. I had practiced for months, stayed up late solving problems, dreamed in equations. The competition was the same weekend as Emma's dance recital, her 5th one that year, where she played a background tree in a community theater production. The family went to the recital. I took the bus to the competition alone, won 2nd place, and came home to an empty house. They were out celebrating Emma's performance at her favorite restaurant. I remembered being 17, getting my acceptance letter to MIT. Full scholarship, a dream come true. I had worked myself to exhaustion for 4 years, joined every academic club, volunteered at the library tutoring younger students, all while working part-time at the grocery store to save for application fees. MIT wanted me. One of the best schools in the world wanted me. "That's too far away," Mom had said, not even looking up from her phone. She was texting Emma's college counselor, trying to get Emma into the state university despite her barely 2.5 GPA. "You should go to the community college for 2 years, then transfer to state. Save money." But Mom, it's a full scholarship. It won't cost, I said no, Sarah. She finally looked at me, and there was something cold in her eyes, something I'd seen so many times I should have been numb to it, but I wasn't. Your father and I need you here. Someone has to help with the bills, and Emma needs support during this stressful time. I remembered going to community college for a year, working 2 jobs, handing over most of my paycheck to help with family expenses that somehow always went to Emma's wants. Designer clothes, spring break trips, a new car for her 18th birthday. I remembered finally transferring to the state university at 19, a year behind where I should have been. I remembered taking 6 classes per semester plus summer courses to catch up, graduating at 22 with honors in computer science. I remembered getting a job offer from a tech startup in California. You can't leave, Dad had said. It wasn't a request. Emma's going through a hard time. She needs her sister. Emma's hard time was that she'd dropped out of college after 1 semester and moved back home. She spent her days shopping and her evenings partying, but apparently me leaving would devastate her. So I stayed. I took a local job that paid half what the California position offered. I lived at home because Mom said they needed help with rent. My paychecks went to the family account. I watched Emma get everything while I got nothing, and I told myself that family was worth it, that eventually they'd see my value, that eventually I'd matter to them. I was still telling myself that when I got sick at 27. It started as a cough. I kept working because I'd used all my sick days covering for Emma when she'd called out hungover. The cough became pneumonia. The pneumonia became sepsis. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks before I died. Mom visited once, stayed 10 minutes, spent the whole time on the phone with Emma about wedding flowers. Dad never came. He was too busy walking Emma through her budget for the reception. Emma herself stopped by twice, both times to borrow money. She needed it for her bachelorette party in Vegas. I died on a Tuesday afternoon. My nurse, Patricia, held my hand. She was a stranger, and she showed me more kindness in those final moments than my family had in 28 years. My last coherent thought was, I wasted my entire life on people who never loved me. Then I woke up. I jolted awake in my childhood bedroom, gasping, my hand clutching my chest where the central line had been. But there was no central line. No hospital smell, no beeping monitors, just my old room, with its single bed and hand-me-down furniture and walls painted the color of dried mustard because Emma hadn't wanted that color for her room. My phone sat on the nightstand, not my smartphone, but an old flip phone from 2014. I grabbed it, flipped it open, stared at the date. June 15th, 2014, the day after my high school graduation. I was 18 again. At first, I thought I was dreaming, or hallucinating, or dead and in some bizarre afterlife. But as the days passed, the truth became undeniable. I had somehow been sent back 10 years, given a second chance at my life, and this time I was going to do everything differently. The memories of my first life stayed sharp and clear, like a movie I'd watched 1,000 times. I remembered every disappointment, every betrayal, every moment I'd swallowed my hurt and convinced myself things would get better. But I also remembered the good things I'd lost. The MIT acceptance, the California job offer, the friends I'd pushed away because my family demanded all my time and energy. I spent the first week in a daze testing the waters. I tried small rebellions. I said no when Mom asked me to do Emma's laundry. I kept my paycheck from my grocery store job instead of putting it in the family account. I started researching ways to resurrect my MIT opportunity. The family's reaction was immediate and vicious. "You're being selfish," Mom said coldly when I refused to give her my paycheck. "After everything we've done for you, the roof over your head, the food." "That's what parents are supposed to provide," I said quietly. In my first life, I would have apologized and handed over the money. I need to save for college. "College?" Emma laughed from the couch, not looking up from her phone. "You're going to community college? You already decided." "No, you and Mom decided. I want to go to MIT." The silence that followed was arctic. "MIT didn't even accept you," Dad said finally. He was lying. I'd shown them the acceptance letter. They'd thrown it away. "They did. You told me I couldn't go." Mom's face flushed red. "How dare you? We made a family decision. You made a decision to keep me trapped here forever, funding Emma's life while mine passed me by. The words felt like acid on my tongue, words I'd never had the courage to say in my first life. Emma shot to her feet, her face twisted with anger. Mom looked like I'd slapped her. Dad's expression went cold and distant, a look I knew well, the look that meant I'd cease to exist in his mind. "Get out," Mom said. "What?" "You heard me. If you're going to disrespect this family, you can leave. Pack your things and get out of my house." I stared at her, my heart pounding. In my first life, this would have broken me. I would have fallen to my knees, apologized, begged for forgiveness. But I'd already died once from trying to please these people. I wouldn't make that mistake again. "Fine," I said. I went to my room, packed a duffel bag with clothes and essentials, and walked out the door. I heard Emma whisper, "She'll be back in a week," begging. I smiled. They had no idea what I was capable of. I spent that first night in a youth hostel, then found a cheap room for rent near campus. I worked full-time at the grocery store and reached out to MIT's admissions office. The acceptance was still valid. I was supposed to start in the fall, but I'd missed the deadline to confirm enrollment. That's when I discovered something interesting about having memories of the future. I knew things other people didn't. I knew which companies were about to explode. I knew which investments would pay off. I knew exactly how the next 4 years of tech trends would unfold. I took every dollar I'd saved, about $3,000 from my job, and opened a trading account. I didn't need to be risky or clever. I just needed to remember. I invested heavily in a little streaming platform that was about to get its first major hit series. I bought stock in a small electric car company that was about to revolutionize the industry. I invested in cryptocurrency when it was still considered a joke. Within 6 months, my $3,000 had become $50,000. Within a year, it was $500,000. I also called MIT and explained my situation. I told them I'd had a family emergency that had prevented me from confirming on time, and I asked if I could defer my admission for a year. They agreed conditionally. I'd need to maintain academic excellence and provide proof of productive use of my gap year, so I enrolled in the local community college, not because my family wanted me to, but because I needed to maintain my transcript. I took accelerated courses, double-loading each semester. I also started freelance coding work, building websites and apps for small businesses. Between my investments, my coding work, and my grocery store job, I was making more money than Dad did at his middle management position, and my family had no idea. I'd blocked their numbers after I moved out. For the first few months, they tried to reach me. Mom called from different phones, leaving angry voicemails about my disrespect. Emma tracked me down at work once, demanding to know where I was living and insisting I come home because Mom missed me. She didn't ask how I was or apologize for anything. She just wanted to know if I'd learned my lesson yet. I looked at Emma, this sister who had everything handed to her, who had never worked a day in her life, who thought my existence was purely to serve her needs. And I felt nothing. Not anger, not hurt, just a calm, cold clarity. "Tell Mom I'm doing great," I said. "Better than I've ever been, actually." Emma's face twisted. "You think you're so special now?" "You're nothing, Sarah. You'll always be nothing. You'll come crawling back eventually." I smiled. "I really won't." She left in a huff, and I never heard from her again for months. Occasionally, I'd check their social media from a burner account I'd created. Mom and Emma posted constantly, shopping trips, spa days, dinners at expensive restaurants. Dad posted about Emma's community college enrollment, so proud of his daughter for pursuing higher education. They posted about their family vacation to Hawaii. They never mentioned me. It was like I'd never existed. Perfect. I spent the next 3 years in careful preparation. I transferred my credits to MIT for my sophomore year, telling the school I'd been taking courses to strengthen my application. With my money, I could afford not just tuition, which was covered by scholarship, but also a nice apartment near campus, a reliable laptop, and the freedom to focus entirely on my studies. MIT was everything I dreamed it would be in my first life. The professors were brilliant. My classmates were driven and passionate. I joined research groups, worked on cutting-edge projects, and made friends who valued intelligence and ambition. For the first time in my life, I was somewhere I belonged. My portfolio continued to grow. I'd moved my investments into more stable, long-term stocks, but I also started angel investing in startups. I remembered which companies from my previous timeline had been successful, and I found their earliest equivalents in this timeline. Some worked out, some didn't. The timeline wasn't perfectly identical, but enough succeeded that by my junior year at MIT, my net worth had crossed $3 million. I hired a financial advisor, a lawyer, and an accountant. I set up a series of LLCs and trusts. I bought real estate, a small apartment building in an up-and-coming neighborhood in Boston that I knew would gentrify within 5 years. I invested in myself, taking courses on business management and entrepreneurship alongside my computer science degree. And I watched my family from afar. Through social media and occasional Google searches, I tracked their downward spiral. Emma had dropped out of community college after one semester, claiming it was too stressful. She moved back home and got a job as a receptionist at a dental office. She quit after 3 months because her boss was mean, which I interpreted as expected her to actually work. She cycled through jobs, retail, food service, admin work, never lasting more than a few months anywhere. Mom and Dad enabled her completely. They paid for her car, her insurance, her credit cards. When she wrecked her car while texting and driving, they bought her another one. When she maxed out 3 credit cards on clothes and trips, they paid them off and told her she needed to be more careful. I watched them drain their retirement savings for Emma's wants. I watched Dad take on a second mortgage. I watched Mom go back to work after years of being a stay-at-home mom because they needed the money. And never once did they mention me or wonder how I was doing. In my first life, this would have devastated me. But now, I understood the truth. They didn't think about me because I'd never mattered to them. I'd been the reliable one, the one who didn't need attention, the one who could be ignored while they focused on Emma. My absence probably made their lives easier. One less person to pretend to care about. The knowledge should have hurt. Instead, it was liberating. I didn't owe them anything, not forgiveness, not a relationship, not even a second thought. So I focused on my future. By my senior year at MIT, I had been recruited by 3 major tech companies with starting offers over $200,000 per year. I also had investors interested in funding a startup idea I'd been developing, an AI-powered platform for personalized learning that I knew would be revolutionary. But I didn't take the job offers, and I didn't pursue the startup funding. Instead, I applied for graduate programs abroad. Oxford, Cambridge, National University of Singapore, ETH Zurich. I applied to the best universities in the world, programs that would take me as far from my family as possible. I got accepted to all of them. I chose Singapore. Planning my disappearance was easier than I'd expected. I'd been functionally invisible to my family for years. They didn't know where I lived, what I studied, or how I'd been supporting myself. On social media, I maintained a carefully curated ghost presence. No location tags, no photos showing where I was, generic posts about studying hard with no identifying details. To the world, or at least to anyone who might be looking, I was still just Sarah Mitchell, a struggling student, probably living somewhere in our hometown, probably working minimum wage, probably still trying to win her family's approval. The truth was so different, it was almost funny. I coordinated my graduation from MIT with my acceptance to the graduate program at NUS. I'd be starting the program in 3 months, which gave me time to get my affairs in order. I hired a property management company to handle my Boston real estate. I set up automatic payments for all my bills and investments through my financial team. I arranged for a change of address to a secure mail forwarding service. I also did something petty, something the old Sarah would never have done. I sent graduation announcements to my family. Not personal ones, not heartfelt invitations. Just the standard MIT graduation announcement with the date, time, and location, sent via the university's bulk mailing system to their home address. I wanted to see if they'd notice, if they'd care. If, given one last chance, they might prove me wrong about them. The announcement went out 6 weeks before graduation. I waited. I checked the burner social media account I used to monitor them. Nothing. Emma posted about starting a new diet. Mom posted about a girl's trip to Napa with her friends. Dad posted about a golf tournament. Not one mention of their daughter graduating from MIT. 2 weeks before graduation. Still nothing. 1 week before. Mom posted asking for prayers because Emma was going through a tough time. The tough time appeared to be that her boyfriend of 3 months had broken up with her. 3 days before graduation, I saw it. Emma's post announcing she was graduating from the community college. She'd gone back apparently and finished her associate degree. The post was full of photos. Emma in her cap and gown, mom and dad beaming beside her, a cake shaped like a graduation cap, a fancy dinner at a steakhouse. "So proud of our girl," mom's caption read. "2 years of hard work and she did it. We love you, Emma." I stared at the photo for a long time. Not because it hurt, it didn't, not anymore. But because it confirmed everything I'd known, everything I'd needed to be true for my plan to work. They didn't know I was graduating from MIT in 3 days. And even if they had known, they wouldn't have cared. Perfect. The day of my graduation, I almost didn't go. The ceremony felt irrelevant. I already had my degree confirmed. I didn't need the pomp and circumstance. But then I decided that I'd earned this moment. I'd worked hard for 4 years. I'd maintained a 3.97 GPA while managing a multi-million-dollar portfolio. I'd published 2 papers, completed a thesis that my advisor said was publishable in a major journal, and secured a full scholarship for my graduate program. I deserved to walk across that stage, even if no one who shared my blood would be there to see it. So I went. I wore my cap and gown. I sat with my fellow graduates, listening to speeches about future potential and changing the world. And when they called my name, Sarah Mitchell, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Applied Mathematics, summa cum laude. I walked across that stage with my head high. The applause was polite and brief, the same as everyone else's. No one in the audience screamed my name or jumped to their feet, but that was okay. I was doing this for me. After the ceremony, I took photos with friends. We went to dinner at a nice restaurant, laughing and sharing stories about our time at MIT. They asked about my plans, and I told them the truth. I was moving to Singapore for graduate school. "Your family must be so proud," one of them said. I smiled and changed the subject. Around 8 p.m. after dinner, I checked my burner account one last time. Emma had posted earlier in the day more photos from her own graduation, which had apparently been that morning. Mom and Dad featured prominently in every shot. The captions were full of love and pride. I closed the app and deleted the account from my phone. I wouldn't need it anymore. That's when I saw them. I'd gone back to collect my things from the ceremonial area. I'd left my program and a few items on my chair. The main ceremony was over, but there were still smaller college-specific receptions happening around campus. I turned a corner and froze. My family was there, not at the main graduation. That had ended 2 hours ago. They were at what looked like the community reception area, taking photos with Emma, who was wearing a cap and gown. It took me a moment to process what I was seeing. Then it clicked. Emma wasn't graduating from MIT. She couldn't. She'd dropped out of community college twice. But the cap and gown she was wearing? They weren't from community college. They were MIT's colors. Someone had rented or bought MIT regalia, and Emma was posing in it around campus, letting Mom and Dad take photos as if she'd graduated from one of the best universities in the world. It was such a brazen lie that I almost laughed. Almost. I watched them from a distance. Mom was practically glowing with pride, arranging Emma for the perfect shot. Dad had his arm around Emma's shoulders, beaming like he'd won the lottery. Emma herself looked smug, posing with her arms crossed like she'd conquered the world. They were creating a narrative, I realized. They were going to tell everyone that Emma had graduated from MIT. They'd post these photos on social media, and their friends would congratulate them, and they'd accept the praise as if it were real. It didn't matter that Emma had never taken a single class here. It didn't matter that she barely graduated high school. In their world, Emma deserved to have graduated from MIT. So the truth was irrelevant. A bitter part of me wanted to walk over there to interrupt their fake photo shoot and announce that I was the one who actually graduated. To throw my summa cum laude cords in their faces and demand they acknowledge what I'd achieved, but I didn't. Because I realized something important. Their recognition meant nothing to me. I didn't need them to see my accomplishments. I didn't need them to be proud. I didn't need them at all. They were living in a delusion, and I was done trying to wake them up. So I turned around and walked away. I had a car waiting at the east entrance, an Uber to the airport. My bags were already packed. My apartment in Boston was being handled by my property manager. My mail was being forwarded. My investments were on autopilot. I had a first class ticket to Singapore, a full scholarship to one of the best graduate programs in the world, and $3 million in assets. I had a future so bright it was almost blinding. And my family? They had fake photos and real debt in each other. They could have it all. I walked to the east entrance, got in the car, and didn't look back. The flight to Singapore was 16 hours with one layover. I spent it reviewing research papers for my upcoming graduate program, planning my first year goals, and drafting a business proposal for a side project I wanted to develop. I also slept better than I had in years, the kind of deep, dreamless sleep that comes from knowing you've finally escaped something toxic. Singapore was everything I'd hoped it would be. The graduate program was intense and intellectually stimulating. My cohort was diverse and brilliant, students from 30 different countries all pursuing advanced degrees in artificial intelligence and machine learning. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the smartest person in the room. I had to work for every achievement, and it felt incredible. I threw myself into my studies. I published papers. I collaborated on research projects that pushed the boundaries of what AI could do. I also started a consulting business on the side, helping Southeast Asian startups implement machine learning solutions. The business took off faster than I expected, and within 6 months, I was making more from consulting than most people made in a year. My net worth continued to climb. My Boston properties had appreciated significantly. My stock portfolio had weathered a minor market correction and come out stronger. I made new investments: real estate in Singapore, stocks in emerging Asian markets, a stake in a promising biotech startup. By my second year of graduate school, I was worth just over $7 million. I made friends. Real friends. Not the kind who wanted something from me, but the kind who valued me for who I was. We'd meet for dinner at hawker centers, discussing everything from quantum computing to the best chili crab in the city. I dated casually, nothing serious, but it was nice to be wanted, to be chosen, to have someone look at me like I mattered. I built a life, a real life, mine. And I didn't think about my family at all. Well, that's not entirely true. Sometimes late at night when I couldn't sleep, I'd wonder if they'd noticed I was gone. If they'd tried to reach out and found nothing. If Emma had finally needed something from me and realized I wasn't there to provide it, but I never checked. I'd deleted all my social media accounts except for a professional LinkedIn with minimal personal information. I'd changed my phone number. I'd set up mail forwarding through a service that scrubbed the return address. As far as my family was concerned, I'd vanished into thin air. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Let them realize too late that they'd thrown away something valuable. Or let them not realize at all. That was fine too. 2 years passed before my family found me, or rather, before they found out about me. I was in the final semester of my master's program preparing to defend my thesis when I got an email from an old high school friend named Jessica. We'd been close once, before my family demanded all my time, but we'd lost touch after graduation. The email was brief. "Sarah, I don't know if this is still your email, but I had to reach out. Your family has been posting everywhere looking for you. They're saying you ran away and they're worried. But I saw you in a tech magazine article about AI innovators under 30 in Asia, and you looked happy and successful. So I'm guessing you're not lost or in trouble. Just wanted to let you know what they're doing. Hope you're well. Jess." Attached was a screenshot of a Facebook post from my mother. "Please help us find our daughter, Sarah Mitchell." It read. "She disappeared 2 years ago after graduating college, and we haven't heard from her since. We're terribly worried about her mental health and safety. If anyone has any information about her whereabouts, please contact us immediately. She was last seen in Boston, but may have traveled elsewhere. We just want to know she's safe. Please share." The post had hundreds of shares and comments. People expressing sympathy, offering to help search, suggesting she might be in danger. Mom had painted herself as a distraught mother, desperately seeking her lost child. I stared at the post for a long time, feeling a familiar cold anger settle in my chest. 2 years. For 2 years, I'd been gone and they hadn't looked for me. They hadn't filed a missing persons report. If they had, the police would have found me easily. I had a passport, bank accounts, an active LinkedIn profile, published academic papers with my name on them. I wasn't hiding from the authorities, just from my family. They'd only started looking for me now, and I could guess why. I did some research. It took about an hour of digging through public records and social media to piece together what had happened. Emma had gotten pregnant. The father was long gone, and Emma had no job, no money, and no prospects. Mom and Dad, who'd been funding Emma's life for years, were tapped out financially. They'd taken on massive debt, drained their retirement accounts, and were facing potential foreclosure on their home. They needed money, and they'd suddenly remembered they had another daughter. Not because they missed me or worried about me or felt guilty for how they'd treated me, but because they needed something from me. I showed the screenshot to my advisor, Dr. Tan, explaining the situation in brief terms. She was a brilliant woman in her 50s who'd taken me under her wing, and she'd become something of a mentor. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Nothing," I said. "They made their choice. Now they can live with it." "They're your family," Dr. Tan said gently. "I'm not saying you owe them anything. From what you've told me, they were quite abusive. But this kind of public search could complicate things for you." She was right. If my family kept pushing, kept posting, kept pretending to be worried, it could draw unwanted attention. People might start looking for me, asking questions. My professional reputation could be affected if the narrative became about a troubled young woman who abandoned her family. I needed to control the story, so I made a decision. I wouldn't reach out to my family directly. I had nothing to say to them. But I would make sure the truth was known. I called Jessica and asked if she'd be willing to help me. She agreed immediately. "I always thought your family treated you like garbage," she said. "Let's set the record straight." Over the next week, Jessica and I crafted a careful response. She would be the messenger since she was still in our hometown and could navigate the social dynamics better than I could from halfway across the world. Jessica made her own Facebook post, tagging my mother and several mutual friends. "I've been seeing posts about Sarah Mitchell being missing, and I need to set the record straight because this narrative is dishonest and harmful. Sarah is not missing. She graduated from MIT, yes, MIT, 2 years ago and is now completing her master's degree in Singapore. She's been incredibly successful both academically and professionally. She's published research papers, been featured in tech magazines, and is thriving in every way. She's not in danger. She's not lost. She left because her family treated her terribly for years, and she chose to build a life away from them. This isn't a missing persons case. It's a case of a successful woman choosing to cut off toxic family members. I'm sharing this so people stop treating Sarah like a victim and start recognizing her for what she really is. Someone who escaped and is doing amazingly well." Jessica attached links to my published papers, the tech magazine article, and my LinkedIn profile, which I'd quickly updated to show I was safe and successful without giving away my exact location. The response was immediate and explosive. People started commenting, digging through the links, comparing the distraught mother post to the evidence of my success. Someone found old posts from my mother's Facebook showing her celebrating Emma's community college graduation on the same day as my MIT graduation, which effectively proved they'd known I was graduating and chose to ignore it. The narrative flipped. Mom's posts went from sympathetic to suspicious. People started asking why, if she was so worried, she hadn't filed a police report. Why she'd waited 2 years to start looking. Why she'd never mentioned having a daughter at MIT. Some of my mother's friends tried to defend her, but others started speaking up. People who'd known me in high school, who'd seen how my family treated me. A former coworker from the grocery store shared that I'd been working full-time while taking advanced classes and that my family would come into shop, ignore me, and make me use my employee discount to pay for their groceries. The court of public opinion turned against my family hard and fast. I watched it unfold from Singapore, feeling nothing but a distant satisfaction. They'd wanted to use concern for me as a way to garner sympathy and maybe financial support. Instead, they'd exposed themselves. 3 days after Jessica's post, I got an email from my mother. Not from her personal email. She didn't have that. It was from Emma's account, but the writing style was clearly Mom's. "Sarah, please call us. We know you're upset, but we're family. Emma is pregnant and needs help. Your father lost his job and we might lose the house. We need you. Please, we can work this out. Whatever we did wrong, we're sorry. Just please come home and help us get through this difficult time. We love you. Mom. I read it twice, looking for any real acknowledgement of what they'd done. Any genuine apology for the years of neglect and emotional abuse. Any recognition that I might have feelings, needs, or a life that didn't revolve around serving them. There was nothing, just we're family and we need you, and an empty we love you that held no weight. I deleted the email without responding. 2 weeks later, another email. Sarah, I don't know what Jessica told you, but she's lying. We've always loved you. You were always so sensitive and dramatic, making up stories about how we treated you. Emma is really struggling right now and needs her sister. You have money, we saw the articles, and we need help. If you care about your family at all, you'll come home. Mom. I deleted that one too. The emails kept coming, each one more desperate and manipulative than the last. They tried guilt. They tried anger. They tried fake apologies. Emma sent one claiming she'd always looked up to me and didn't understand why I abandoned her in her time of need. I didn't respond to any of them. There was nothing to say. My silence was my answer, and I defended my thesis 6 months later. My research on neural network optimization for resource-constrained devices was groundbreaking enough that I had 2 job offers before the defense was even complete. One from a major tech company in Singapore, the other from a research position at the university. I took the university position, I liked teaching, and the research opportunities were incredible. Plus, it came with a comfortable salary, excellent benefits, and the freedom to continue my consulting work on the side. Life was good. Better than good. It was everything I'd ever wanted. I bought an apartment in Singapore, a beautiful high-rise unit with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Marina Bay. I decorated it exactly how I wanted, with modern furniture and minimalist design. I hung my diplomas on the wall, MIT undergraduate, NUS graduate, both summa cum laude. I dated someone seriously for the first time. His name was David. He was a researcher in the biotech startup I'd invested in, and he was kind and funny and treated me like I mattered. We took weekend trips to Thailand and Indonesia. We talked about the future. I published more papers. I spoke at conferences. I mentored graduate students. I watched my consulting business grow to the point where I had to hire help. I lived, and slowly, the memories of my first life and my family began to feel like something that had happened to someone else. Like a sad story I'd read once but didn't have to live anymore. 3 years after I'd left, I got a notification from my property management company. The tenants in my Boston building wanted to renew their lease, but there was a situation. A woman claiming to be my mother had shown up at the building, demanding to know where I was and insisting the property manager contact me immediately. My property manager, a no-nonsense woman named Patricia, ironically the same name as the nurse who'd held my hand when I died in my first life, had told her nothing and escorted her off the property. She'd also filed a trespassing notice to prevent future incidents. She seemed desperate, Patricia wrote in her email. I just wanted you to be aware in case she escalates. I thanked Patricia for handling it and told her to call the police if my mother showed up again. A week later, I got a LinkedIn message. It was from Emma. Sarah, I know you're mad at us, but this has gone on long enough. Mom and Dad lost everything because of you. They had to declare bankruptcy. They lost the house. Dad had a heart attack from the stress. He's okay, but he could have died. All because you were selfish and cut us off when we needed you most. I have a daughter now. She's 2 years old. She deserves to know her aunt. Don't you want to meet your niece? Don't you care about family at all? I've changed, Sarah. We all have. Please, just talk to me. Emma. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me, the old Sarah, the one who died alone in a hospital bed because she'd spent her whole life trying to earn her family's love, wanted to respond. Wanted to explain that I hadn't caused their financial problems. They'd done that to themselves by living beyond their means and enabling Emma's dysfunction. Wanted to point out that family had meant nothing to them when I was the one who needed something. But I didn't respond, because the truth was, it didn't matter what I said. They would never understand. They would never acknowledge their role in pushing me away. They would always see themselves as the victims and me as the villain. And I was okay with that. I blocked Emma on LinkedIn and moved on. 5 years after leaving, I'm 30 years old. Technically 38 if you count my first life, but who's counting? I'm an associate professor at NUS now, leading my own research lab. My work on AI ethics and equitable technology has been cited thousands of times. I've been invited to speak at conferences around the world. I have a team of brilliant graduate students who look up to me. My consulting company expanded into a full-fledged tech firm with 15 employees. We specialize in AI solutions for developing markets, focusing on education and healthcare applications. Last year, we secured a contract with the Singaporean government. My net worth is somewhere north of $20 million now. I have properties in 3 countries. I invest in causes I care about: scholarships for first-generation college students, support for domestic abuse survivors, funding for women in STEM. David and I got married last year. It was a small ceremony on a beach in Bali, just close friends and his family. His mother cried and told me she was proud of me. His father hugged me and said I was the best thing that ever happened to his son. No one from my birth family was there. I didn't invite them. I didn't even tell them. As far as I know, they still don't know I'm married. Sometimes I wonder if they think about me, if they regret how they treated me, if they ever realized that their worthless daughter was the only one with any real potential. Probably not. People like my family don't reflect, they don't grow. They just find new people to blame for their failures. But here's the thing. I don't wonder often. Days will go by where I don't think about them at all, weeks sometimes. They're like a bad dream I had once. Unpleasant in the moment, but fading with time. I built a life without them, a good life, a life where I'm valued and respected and loved, a life where I matter, and that's the best revenge I could ever have. Last month, I got a letter, actual physical mail forwarded through my secure service. It was from my father. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won out. The letter was handwritten, the penmanship shaky. Dad would be in his mid-60s now, not old, but not young either, especially if he'd had a heart attack. Dear Sarah, it read, I know I have no right to contact you after everything that's happened. I know we failed you. I know we don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know the truth. Your mother and I, we were wrong about everything. We thought we were helping Emma by giving her everything, but we just made her helpless. She's 32 now and can barely take care of herself or her daughter. She lives with us in our tiny apartment, unemployed, dependent on our social security. We're broke. We're tired. We're full of regret. I saw your picture in a newspaper article last month. Something about AI ethics and technology. You looked so confident and successful. You looked happy. I barely recognized you. And I realized that we never really knew you at all. We were so focused on Emma, so worried she couldn't make it on her own, that we completely missed the fact that you didn't need us. You were always going to be okay, better than okay. You were always meant for great things, and we never saw it. I'm not writing to ask for money or help. I know we have no right to ask you for anything. I'm writing to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we weren't the parents you deserved. I'm sorry we wasted your childhood and your love. I'm sorry we never told you we were proud of you, because we should have been. We should have been shouting from the rooftops about how amazing you are. I understand if you never want to speak to us again. I understand if you've moved on completely. But I needed you to know that I see it now. I see what we did, and I'm sorry. Your father, I read the letter 3 times. I looked for the catch, the manipulation, the request hiding under the apology. But it seemed genuine. Dad had finally understood what he'd done. Too little, too late. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. What would I even say? Thanks for finally noticing I exist? Congratulations on your character development? The apology didn't change anything. It didn't undo the years of neglect. It didn't erase the loneliness or the hurt or the feeling of being invisible in my own family. It didn't bring back my first life or the opportunities I'd lost trying to please them. An apology without amends is just words. And I didn't need their words anymore. I have everything I need right here. Sometimes David asks me about my family. He knows the basics, that we're estranged, that they weren't good to me, that I've chosen not to have a relationship with them. He doesn't push, but I know he's curious. Do you ever regret it? He asked me last night over dinner. Cutting them off completely? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. I regret wasting so much time trying to make them love me. But I don't regret leaving. That was the best decision I ever made. Even though they're struggling now, especially because they're struggling now, I said, their struggles are the consequences of their choices. They chose to spend beyond their means. They chose to enable Emma instead of teaching her responsibility. They chose to treat me like I didn't matter. I didn't cause their problems. I just refused to solve them. David nodded, reaching across the table to take my hand. You're amazing, you know that? I smiled. I do, actually. Took me 2 lifetimes to figure it out, but yeah, I know. We laughed, and the conversation moved on to lighter topics. But later that night, lying in bed next to my husband, I thought about the life I'd built. I thought about the scared 18-year-old I'd been when I first woke up reborn, terrified and overwhelmed by the memories of a wasted life. I thought about the young woman who'd walked away from her family with nothing but a duffel bag and a determination to do better. I thought about every risk I'd taken, every hard decision, every moment I'd chosen myself over the people who'd claimed to love me but never showed it. And I felt proud, not spiteful or bitter, just proud. I'd broken the cycle. I'd refused to let them define me. I'd built something beautiful from the ashes of my first life's failure. And somewhere out there, my family was finally facing the reality of their choices, without me there to cushion the fall. They'd ignored my graduation. They'd never known I left the country. They'd treated me like I was nothing. And now they knew the truth. I wasn't nothing. I was everything they'd overlooked, everything they'd underestimated, everything they'd thrown away. I was free, and I was never looking back. Epilogue. 7 years after leaving, I'm sitting in my office at the university preparing for a lecture when my assistant knocks on the door. Professor Mitchell, there's someone here to see you. She says she's your sister. I look up, surprised. I don't have a sister, I say automatically. My assistant looks uncomfortable. She's quite insistent. Should I call security? I consider it, then curiosity gets the better of me. No, it's fine. Send her in. Emma walks into my office and I barely recognize her. She's thin, too thin, with dark circles under her eyes and cheap clothes that hang off her frame. She looks exhausted and defeated. She stares at me like she's seeing a ghost. You look good, she says finally. Thank you, I say neutrally. What do you want, Emma? She swallows hard. I needed to see if the articles were true. If you really are a professor, if you really have money, if you really are successful, I finish for her. Yes, I am. She sinks into the chair across from my desk without being invited. How? She whispers. How did you do it? I was supposed to be the special one. I was supposed to have the good life. But I have nothing. And you have everything. I lean back in my chair, studying her. I could be kind. I could offer platitudes about hard work and determination. I could pretend that her current situation isn't a direct result of her choices. But I don't. You want to know the difference between us? I ask. You spent your entire life having everything handed to you and learned nothing. I spent mine being handed nothing and learned everything. You believed you were entitled to success without effort. I knew I'd have to work for every single thing I got. You relied on other people to solve your problems. I learned to solve my own. That's not fair, Emma says, tears in her eyes. Mom and Dad always liked you better. I actually laugh at that. Emma, they didn't even show up to my MIT graduation. They showed up to yours, and you graduated from community college. They funded your lifestyle while I worked 3 jobs. They paid your bills while I built companies. They never liked me better. They just needed me less. And you mistook their neglect of me for preference for you. I came here to ask for help, Emma admits. My daughter needs things. I need things. We're living in a shelter right now. Mom and Dad can't afford to help anymore. I thought maybe I what? I interrupt. Maybe I'd bail you out. Maybe I'd play the role I always played, sacrificing myself so you can coast through life. No, Emma, I'm done with that. But we're family, she says desperately. No, I say quietly. We're related. But we were never family. Family doesn't treat each other the way you all treated me. Family shows up. Family cares. Family supports each other. You never did any of those things for me. I was young, Emma protests. I didn't understand. You're 33 years old now. You understand. You just don't want to accept that your actions have consequences. Emma stands, her face flushed with anger. You're heartless. You're cruel. When Mom and Dad die, you'll regret this. Maybe, I say, but probably not. I've lived a life of regret, Emma. I died once, full of regret for the years I wasted trying to please people who didn't care about me. I won't make that mistake again. I hope you end up alone, Emma spits. I won't, I say calmly. I have a husband who loves me, friends who value me, students who respect me, a career I'm proud of. I have everything I need, and none of it depends on people who spent years proving they don't deserve me. Emma stares at me for a long moment, then turns and walks out without another word. I watch her go and feel nothing, not anger, not guilt, not even satisfaction, just peace. I turn back to my computer and continue preparing my lecture. I have a class in an hour. Bright young minds who are eager to learn, who see me as someone worth listening to, who value the knowledge I share. My phone buzzes with a text from David. Dinner at 7? Thai place? I smile and text back. Perfect. Love you. Outside my window, Singapore glows in the afternoon sun. Beautiful, vibrant, full of possibility. This is my life now, mine. Built by my own hands, free from the people who tried to hold me back. I let them ignore my graduation. I left the country without them knowing, and I never looked back. Best decision I ever made.